Hi folks, it's Bob from Mountain Crest Farm. Oh, what a pretty morning. A little bit of a nip in the air. We're into September now. On the downhill slide, or uphill slide, depending on what you like, heat or cool weather. But it's going to be chilly for long, even during the day. This morning was cool enough that I wore my jacket out here and then promptly took it off. It's just standing around doing absolutely nothing. It was chilly enough for the jacket when I came out the door, but it is warming up some. Not much, but just a few degrees, enough to not need the jacket. Going to be a pretty day. I'm looking around and I'm seeing blue skies. Oh, me. I got a call from my daughter-in-law last night. Well, actually, I got a text from my son asking if we wanted to buy some sheets. You know, like sheets and pillowcases. I said, why are you selling sheets? I thought you worked for a record service. Actually, not a record service. My son, he is one of those repo guys. But I said, why are you selling sheets? He said, I've got a granddaughter. She's 5 years old, just starting kindergarten this year. And first you gotta understand, my son is a football nut. Sadly, I apparently didn't raise him right because he's a University of Georgia fan, and we all know that Georgia Tech is far superior to University of Georgia. For one thing, the football players at Georgia Tech are actually able to read and write. And when they graduate from school, if they don't get an NFL contract, their job options are not limited to asking the question, do you want french fries with that, over and over and over. But that's totally off the subject of this video. I said, why are you selling sheets? And he said, well, Tori is cheerleading for the first year, and selling sheets is a fundraiser. Oh God, I started shaking my head right then. Well, later I talked to my daughter-in-law, and the fact I don't like that my granddaughter is in organized cheerleading at 5 years old. I don't like that at all. But it is what it is. I'm not going to tell my son and my daughter-in-law how to raise their daughter, as long as they don't go too far off the rails. But it seems that the youth league that she's cheering for a little youth league football team, which is already supported by taxpayers. It's through a county recreation department. Besides using pictures as a fundraiser. Oh yeah, I'll tell you about that in just a minute. Pictures are a big time fundraiser. Besides that, they sell sheets and get a percentage of the proceeds. Well, my daughter-in-law told me that was bad enough. They pay a small fortune for her to cheer anyway by the time they buy the uniform and everything. But every parent got a letter that some of the kids, some of the cheerleaders, would be recognized at halftime of the homecoming game. Yes, youth sports, homecoming game. Would be recognized at halftime of the homecoming game. The deciding factor whether your child was recognized at halftime was whether or not you had sold any sheets or not. It's not whether the kid's a good cheerleader. It's not whether the kid follows the rules. It's whether or not the kid's parents sold some sheets. Because we're talking sheets. You don't go door to door like you do with Girl Scout cookies. Although Girl Scouts don't go door to door anymore either. So parents who maybe can't afford a set of sheets, they've got all the sheets they need and their budget's tight and they just don't have the money to put into a set of sheets, they're going to take money out of another budget, their grocery budget, whatever, so that they can buy some sheets, because they don't want their child to be standing on the sidelines while other children are being recognized. The parents would understand what was going on, but the kid wouldn't. All her little friends are out there on the field at the 50-yard line at halftime, getting recognized, while she stands on the sidelines. No parent's going to let that happen. It's extortion is what it is. Fundraisers in youth league sports are extortion. All this is leading to something else about youth league sports, by the way. Let me tell you about photography in sports. Everybody knows your kid plays baseball. Photographer shows up, takes a team picture, takes individual pictures, and you're offered a package of pictures. And they're usually, sometimes they're good pictures, sometimes they're not. I was in the business for years and years and years. Before I got rid of my coat and tie and moved up here and decided to be a hippie pig farmer, that was my business. I had a school photography company down in Metro Atlanta that our whole thing was groups. You get more than 10 people together, I'll take your picture. We didn't do family portraits or anything like that. We did youth league sports, we did high school sports, middle school sports, church directories. Had about 500 customers spread over 5 states. We worked in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina. 6 states. Only had 1 customer in North Carolina, so really only 5 states. But let me tell you about your youth league pictures for all you parents and grandparents out there. Those are a fundraiser for the youth league as well. You know, that youth league you're already paying for with your tax money because it's usually played in a city park or something like that. It's usually sponsored by the recreation department. So you're already paying for it. Well, then you're paying for it again with those pictures. 20% commission. If you buy $20 worth of pictures from a youth sports photographer, the one that's officially the photographer, where they get everybody together, all the teams, and have a big photography day and all like that. If you spend 20 bucks, $6 goes to the youth league. So when you complain about your pictures being too expensive, don't look at the photographer, because he could sell it for 14, because that's what he's getting out of it. Look at your youth league. Greedy is what they are. It's a good thing I don't have a kid that age anymore. I'd probably wind up in jail, because I would be raising all kinds of hell about the greed of the people that run youth sports organizations, okay? But anyway, so obviously we're buying a set of sheets. I was going to just give them, I wanted to know what percentage did the youth league get. We didn't need any sheets. What percentage did the league get? And I was going to just donate enough to cover 2 sets of sheets. That's when she told me that they don't get to participate unless they buy sheets. Youth league sports are a racket. I don't care if it's a private organization. I don't care if it's sponsored by the county recreation department. Youth league sports are a racket. Let me tell you something else about youth league sports. Do you know who plays football in youth league sports and baseball anymore? Most of those kids don't like the pressure that's put on them, because they get a lot of pressure to win. They don't get a lot of pressure to go play and have fun. They get a lot of pressure to win, just as much as in high school and college and the pros. And I've talked to a lot of kids. You remember, I was in this business. I had 250, 300,000 kids pass in front of me every year. And I talked to some of them. I see one that had a kind of a sad look on their face. I'd talk to them. A lot of these kids don't even like it. They like the game. They like football, or they like baseball, or they like basketball, but they don't like the organized youth league sports aspect of it. And I talked to a lot of parents too. You know what I found out? You know who wants their kid to play baseball or football or basketball or soccer in youth league sports, some fat father sitting over there on the sidelines who was crappy at it when he was a kid, and he is living vicariously through his child. That's who wants him to play. Dad wants to live through his kid. He wants to have what he couldn't have because he was a fat, lazy kid. That's the straight up fact. Cheerleading? I'm not talking about my daughter-in-law here. Of course, I've got to exclude her. But cheerleading reminds me of these kiddie beauty pageants where they dress 5-year-olds to look up to all the makeup and clothes where they look like little streetwalkers. You know, like what was the famous one he was murdered back in 1996, JonBenet Ramsey. Those beauty pageants, you know who the mothers are in those? Yeah, they're the kids that were fat and couldn't win a beauty contest if they bought and paid the judges off. And they're living vicariously through their daughters. Here's how youth league should work. Now, this is the world according to Bob. If everybody, all the important people died off and left Bob in charge, here's how kids would play baseball and football. They'd do it like they did when I was a kid. There'd be this one empty lot somewhere around that all the kids showed up on Saturday mornings. And they sort of, at a ad hoc meeting, decided who was going to be in charge. Not in charge of the whole thing, but in charge as in, we got enough kids here for 2 teams. Who's the coaches on the teams? Who's the leader on the teams? And usually the 2 most popular kids would get selected because it was just a sort of a consensus choice among all the kids that were there. And then they'd do they would pick teams, and how would that picking teams work? Well, if they were playing baseball, they'd get a baseball bat, and they'd do one of those where you start down here, and then the other kid here, and then the other kid here, and the other kid here, and the other kid, and whoever wound up grabbing it at the top with no more room, that person chose first. And they chose back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth. Chose up some teams. They had all brought their gloves. A couple of kids had brought some bats. And a few kids had brought, a ball or 2 balls or 3 balls. And they'd play baseball. Sometimes the baselines weren't exactly the right distance apart. And sometimes the bases were a chunk of cardboard. But they played baseball. And they had a good time. And they learned how to play baseball. They didn't need an adult out there screaming at him because he knew that all the parents were going to be on his rear end if they didn't win, and then playing certain kids because their daddy was important and could get them kicked off the team, so his kid had to play a lot, even though his kid really didn't care and didn't try. The kids just had fun. What happened to that? It did a pretty good job. We're not talking about all that long ago. I'd say 80s, early 80s, maybe 70s. I know it was that way in the 60s. That's when I was a kid. And yeah, some kids don't get picked till they're last. And that's going to hurt their self-esteem so bad. No, it's not. It's going to make them stronger. I was a fat little kid, okay? I was a fat little kid, and I was one of the kids that was picked last. It hurt that day. Didn't hurt too bad because even though I was picked last, I was picked. They had to pick everybody. That was one of the unwritten rules. You had to pick everybody. And I got to play. It made me work harder. It made me try to get better so I wouldn't be picked last. I don't see where it's damaged me that much. What happened to letting kids have fun? What happened to just letting kids go out and play? Take the damn screens away from your kids. take the smartphones and the tablets away from your kids and send them out the door to do those non-PC things like play cowboys and Indians or agricultural engineers and indigenous people. Helps their imagination, because today kids don't have to use their imagination. It's all handed to them. They play a video game. Who's the bad guy's already decided, who's the good guy's already decided. All that stuff. They don't have to use their imagination. They don't have to go out and pick up a stick and figure out how to make it look like a gun by breaking off certain branches and make their own bows and arrows. And today's stuff totally takes imagination away from kids. And imagination's where you learn to think. When it's all handed to you, you don't have to think. Hey, I just do what I'm told. And that's the other thing that's wrong with it. We are teaching our kids to follow someone else's rules that may or may not be right and do as they're told. We're making good little automatons out of our kids. They can't think for themselves. All they can do is what they're told to do. It's sad. It is really sad. I just, like the title of this video says, or I'm planning for the title to be something like this, depends on whether the keywords work real good in YouTube, but let kids be kids. Let them just go play and have fun. There'll be time enough for serious sports. Live through your kid's football when he's playing high school football, when he's playing college football if he's good enough. You can live through him then. You can say, hey, that's my kid here. That's my genetics out there that just flattened that quarterback. I'm partial to defensive players. I was a defensive end. Don't try to make them little adults at 5 years old, for God's sake. Another time, an older time, and I think a better time, personally. I think everything was better way back. I'm not even going to get into my diatribe on the good old days today. I will sometime. I have a little bit in the past, and I may do a video on the good old days one of these days. But today I'm just ragging on youth sports, youth cheerleading, and those little girls in the kitty beauty pageants that by the time their mothers get through doing their hair and their makeup look like little high-class streetwalkers. That's what they look like. For any of y'all out there that do that to your daughter, you're making her look like a little streetwalker. And you're just living through them because you never could look that good when you were a kid. So now that I've offended no telling how many of my viewers, probably ran off some subscribers, I think I'm going to about call it a day on this video. But not until I asked you to give me a thumbs up. If you like the video, give me a thumbs down. If you don't, and I know I'm going to get some thumbs downs on this one, but down there, tell me where I'm wrong. And while you're down there, around the comments area, between the video and the comments, there's a place you can hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to Mountain Crest Farm. Right beside the subscribe button, a little bell shows up. Hit that bell so that you'll get notifications when I put up another video. And have an absolutely awesome day. I'm going to. I want y'all to have one too. And it's really, really easy. To have an awesome day takes two things. Remember that number one, the tomb was empty. And number two, he is alive. Thank God he's alive. Y'all go have a fantastic day. I'm going to. See you next time.